Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service through a unique partnership with Alaska Public Media. It is Friday, March 10th, 2023. And if you'd like additional weather information on top of what I provide, you can go to weather.gov. That is the National Weather Service's online presence. It'll bring you to a map of the continental U.S. with Hawaii and Alaska to the lower left. All you have to do is point and click anywhere on this map, and it'll pull up forecast with any relevant watches, warnings, or advisories for any location in the country. We have a lot going on across the lower 48. Winter weather advisories in portions of the east, and then also across the northern plains, winter storm warnings, blizzard warnings up there across North Dakota, far western Minnesota. Another system coming out of the southern Rockies, and then as we go further west, a big storm impacting California with heavy flooding rains and heavy mountain snows. Some areas of the Sierra Nevada and the highest peaks there, they're expecting around or even over 100 inches of snowfall with this latest storm over the course of the weekend. Up here in Alaska, we have high wind warnings that remain in effect for areas around Valdez and Thompson Pass, as well as Juneau, and especially the higher elevations surrounding Juneau. A winter weather advisory has been posted for the western Seward Peninsula, including Wales and Teller on over across to St. Lawrence Island. That'll be tonight through 6 p.m. on Saturday. Overall, the pattern is going to change. The upper ridge that has been in place is breaking down. It's going to kind of fold over and allow colder air to return across much of the mainland as we go through next week. And this is going to lead to below normal temperatures across a good portion of the mainland here, as I said here, especially by the latter half of next week into next weekend. Looking at some of the FAA webcams in the far west, Teller there in the western Seward Peninsula, a few flurries, temperature 3 above. The system that's coming in this weekend along the west coast there in the western Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence, will not be nearly as strong as the blizzard of last weekend, but you will see some light accumulating snow and blowing snow with a cold front that'll be pushing through there. Further east and through the eastern interior, Fort Yukon, low cloud deck. The base of these clouds are only around 700 feet this afternoon with a temperature at 12 above. And then finally further south and east as we look there at Thompson Pass, beautiful bright blue sky with the sunshine, the mountains accentuated. There's a high wind warning in effect there through early this Friday evening. Winds could still gust up around 60 miles an hour or so here for a little while longer before diminishing. Winds will continue strong in the Juneau area through tonight early Saturday morning. High wind warning is in effect. Temperature there with the bright sunshine only 29 degrees, and some of the winds have gusted there around Juneau to near 60 miles an hour through at least early mid-afternoon this Friday. And there was a peak wind gust at Sheep Mountain above Juneau up around 100 miles an hour. So those very strong winds could continue here yet through tonight, being caused by a big pressure gradient that's sitting across the intercoastal mountains and the various gaps and ridges as a result of high pressure over northwest Canada and a weaker area of low pressure south of Haida Gwaii. Back to the west, we have those couple of winter weather advisories for some light accumulating snow and blowing snow for tonight and through 6 p.m. at least during the day on Saturday. Cold front is going to be slowly working its way southeastward from out of the Arctic Ocean, eastern Russia, and as that does so, it's going to begin the transition of the overall pattern. As far as anything interesting in the sky, waning gibbous moon right now. Last quarter moon occurs Tuesday on March 14th. Only low aurora activity expected tonight. No intense solar storms or anything like that like a couple weekends ago. And don't forget the time change. Spring ahead 1 hour Saturday night before bed. That officially goes into effect 2 a.m. Sunday morning. Looking at the satellite imagery, we have imagery only up through midday today, but you can see the low pressure circulation here to the west and southwest of Haida Gwaii. We have high pressure up here over the Yukon Northwest Territory, so it's strong pressure gradient lying here along the coastal mountains that's causing those stronger outflow and gap winds. We have another disturbance here back out toward the Aleutians, not especially strong, and then here you can see a low that's up north of Utqiagvik in the Arctic Ocean with a front extending trending back toward the southwest to just west of the Bering Strait. That is the system that's going to be the lead in pushing in some colder air back across the mainland here as we go through the later weekend, and especially by next week. There'll be a reinforcing system coming in behind this Sunday night, Monday, and Tuesday that'll be dropping down southeastward like this along the west side of the state. So this Friday afternoon, you can see we have that front working its way slowly eastward. The weakening area of low pressure here south of Haida Gwaii. Pretty strong high up there in northwest Canada. And by Saturday, this front just slowly presses southeast. There'll be a little bit of light snow or some snow showers along it, not a big snow producer. And then by Sunday, that front kind of washes out with just a few remnant light snow showers, flurries. Could help spin up a weak low just off of the Kenai Peninsula out over the western Gulf. And then here's the hint of that next reinforcing system. That's what's going to be really pulling down the colder air for next week. And as that system drops southeastward across Norton Sound Monday and then eventually the Alaska Peninsula, in the wake of that, stronger north winds will develop on the west side of the state, allowing the colder air to pour southward. Here are the lows Saturday morning. Teens in through areas of the inner channels, pretty cold, 13 below Glen Allen, so it's going to be chilly. Winds still holding up in some of the higher elevations and through the gaps. Temperatures Saturday only around or just above freezing areas of the Kenai to near Anchorage, still upper 30s to the lower portion of the Panhandle. And then a cold morning up there, the upper Copper River Basin, still below zero. And elsewhere, many readings down, well down into the teens. And Sunday afternoon, we expect temperatures to stay below freezing on northern half of the Panhandle and up through the Anchorage Bowl, Talkeetna. Colder air will also be in place. Maybe this is not as cold as what it was over a week ago, but you're going to see many readings still below zero. Daytime highs are going to begin to slip on the northwest side of the state by the time we get into Saturday, because that cold front is going to begin to press southeastward. Lows generally below zero across all of the north, with the coldest readings along the northwestern coast, the west half of the north slope. And then notice Sunday afternoon highs now are sub-zero near 10 below Wainwright, Utqiagvik, and even back along the western portion of the Seward Peninsula. And that colder air will press further south and east as we go through next week, especially the initial surge coming in early next week. Saturday morning lows across the southwest interior, single digits above and below zero. Still back up above freezing, the tip of the Alaska Peninsula through the eastern central Aleutians. Saturday afternoon highs could still be up in the lower 40s. Chiknik back through Cold Bay and certainly Dutch Harbor. And then Sunday morning lows, because of that front, some cloud cover will generally be in the high single digits, teens there in the southwest interior, still above freezing there through the Aleutians. And Sunday afternoon, starting to cool off there down around Norton Sound, and even colder air is poised to come southward as the pattern begins to change. Extending out along the Alaska Peninsula, we still expect some temperatures to be up around or maybe a tad above 40. But looking ahead here, this is most noteworthy for March 16th through the 20th. That's the 6 to 10-day outlook provided by the Climate Prediction Center. And it's showing what we have right now is a ridge of high pressure that's kind of nudging up into the state like this. That ridge is going to fold and weaken and fold southeastward, allowing the colder air to spill southward. And that's why by this time next week, we anticipate below or even some much below normal temperatures over the southwestern portion of the mainland. And that will even cool down. Areas of the Panhandle should be closer to normal temperatures, but I guess the greatest likelihood of seeing those below normal temperatures settle into the west side of the state here the latter half of next week. We're also going to see increasing northerly flow along the west coast from the Bering Strait down along the southwest coast. Any areas here along the central eastern Bering that have open water will also likely develop some rather significant freezing spray. Also, there could be some shifting of any of the ice along here. Plenty is opening up with those stronger north winds, especially as we go Sunday night through the day, Monday into early Tuesday. Now, precipitation for March 16th through the 20th is expected to be near normal across much of the north, central, and southwest part of the state, but could be a bit above normal for areas from around the north end of the Kenai on up across Prince William Sound and then down in through the southeast Panhandle. So that's the way way things are looking up here as we go through mid-month.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Let's take a look now at your aviation weather. If you have a flight planned this weekend, either Saturday or Sunday, what we're watching, at least in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, we have a ridge of high pressure that's out over the Alaska Peninsula and up into the Western Gulf and affecting the mainland with generally clear, dry VFR weather extending down into the Panhandle. Surface high pressure will be situated through the course of the weekend and early next week over northwest Canada, over the Yukon, Northwest Territories. But in the mid-upper levels of the atmosphere, we have a trough that's going to be coming in from the Chukchi Sea, Arctic Ocean. That's going to be swinging through especially northern sides of the state, and then on the backside of that, a secondary trough will dig southeastward across the Bering Strait and Norton Sound by the time we get into Sunday night and Monday. So out ahead of the lead trough, surface cold front will be areas of IFR associated with lower ceilings, some light snow or snow showers there in the northwest, especially along the Brooks Range and the areas of the North Slope. By Saturday afternoon, that area is focused there, the western half of the Brooks Range, Kotzebue Sound, lower Chukchi Sea, north side of the Seward, and then that system will progress southeastward across areas of the north, the eastern half of the Brooks Range in through the middle Yukon Valley. We also have a bit of a reflection of that down there along and north of the Aleutian Chain through the lower Bering Sunday morning, and then finally, as that system continues to work its way eastward, it'll butt up into the Alaska Range on up in through the eastern interior Yukon Flats all the way up toward Kaptovik. So we expect IFR conditions along and just behind that system. As far as pass conditions go, Anaktuvik Pass starting out IFR, but then MVFR, and that system will be pushing through there Saturday into Saturday night. Adigan Pass, generally MVFR conditions are anticipated, but across much of the mainland, Alaska Range on up into the Panhandle, we expect VFR conditions, Lake Clark and Merrill, as well as rainy, rounding on up through Windy Pass, and then eastward through Isabel and Mentasta Passes, we expect VFR conditions on Saturday. Further southwest to Nita Pass down through Portage Pass, VFR conditions there even along the northern Gulf, and then up through the northern Panhandle as well as much of the Panhandle Saturday, Chilkoot and White VFR conditions. Looking at the freezing levels at the surface, they run out through the central Bering between St. Matthews to near St. Paul, out across the Alaska Peninsula between Kodiak Island and the Kenai, and then up along the northern Gulf Coast in through the inner channels of the Panhandle. Notice the bump, though, of freezing levels aloft, 2,000, 4,000 to 6,000 feet here in through the eastern Aleutians, tip of the Alaska Peninsula. Again, a bit of a reflection of that mid-upper level trough dropping in from the south and east. Ahead of it, we expect to be a little warmer air leading out ahead of that trough. Icing threat, no real areas of significant icing, but some isolated moderate icing possible along the lower Chukchi Sea, northwest coast and through the western half of the Brooks Range and Seward Peninsula. There is an area of low pressure southeast of Haida Gwaii, and in the backside of it, some showers and things could encounter some freezing isolated areas above 3,000 feet, and then back out toward the central Aleutians about 5,000 feet. Here are the upper level winds, 30,000-foot jet stream level winds. You can see that ridge extending up into the southwest portion of the mainland. Low pressure, weak circulation aloft at 30,000 feet just southwest of Haida Gwaii. Here's the hint of that trough coming in there across the Arctic Ocean and Chukchi Sea. And as we bring it down to 700 millibars or 9,000 feet, we can see that trough axis there pushing in through the Chukchi Sea into the northwest coast. Meanwhile, low pressure situated southwest of Haida Gwaii, just south of the southeastern Gulf on the backside of it. Brisk northeast flow, still some of that out there across northern ends of the Panhandle. And then at 3,000 feet, we have the low circulation there just southwest of Haida Gwaii. High pressure, surface high pressure is going to be situated here over in northwest Canada, even though we're at 3,000 foot level. And we're going to start to see later this weekend, Sunday and into early Monday, we're going to have a brisk northerly flow develop behind that trough along the west coast. So the greatest threat for turbulence coming up here on Saturday will be out along areas of the Gulf, some moderate turbulence possible, northern Panhandle and northeastern Gulf Coast, also down from Prince William Williams Sound, inside west side there of Kenai Peninsula to Kodiak Island, surface to 6,000 feet, and as I mentioned, some stronger north winds developing west side of the state Sunday into Monday.
Used to be that you could only warn one person about a tornado after it had already blown down someone else's barn.
Now, on average, we're able to issue a tornado warning 15 minutes before the tornado's even there, and that wouldn't be happening without Doppler radar.
This NexRad system has reduced fatalities on the order of 45% due to tornadoes since its advent.
We have a lot more information now about storms and being able to understand how they develop, how they produce severe weather, and how that information might be used to improve warnings for our National Weather Service partners.
The lab is unique in that we serve the nation by supporting the National Weather Service in its mission to protect lives and safe property by improving the accuracy and the lead time of severe weather warnings.
We have a legacy of radar research and converting existing technology from military to weather purposes.
A recycled Doppler radar led to the development of NexRad, installed nationwide in the early 90s. It allowed forecasters to see storms like never before.
Not only did we help bring that technology to the National Weather Service and to help protect lives and property, but we have continued to upgrade that technology, keep it relevant, and keep it state-of-the-art.
Recently, a major upgrade was added. Dual polarization technology takes the radar from 2D to 3D. Forecasters now know more about what type of precipitation is falling, which is very helpful during winter storms, as well as how much rain is accumulating, resulting in better flash flood warnings. The radar can also detect and track tornadoes based on debris. Looking to the future, the National Severe Storms Lab is testing the capabilities of phased array radar. Originally used by the U.S. Navy, the antenna scans the skies electronically rather than mechanically, allowing the radar to focus on a storm.
With current technology, we get a full picture or image of what is going on within a storm every 4 to 5 minutes. So it's more like a snapshot. Whereas with phased array radar, we get that picture of what's going on in the storm every minute. So it becomes more like watching a movie. So we can do adaptive, rapid scanning on the storms that matter most, being able to provide the information that's most relevant when and where it's happening.
Another advantage of phased array radar is its multifunction capability, providing weather and air traffic information simultaneously.
Number one, it is a system that promises to replace and expand upon the existing weather surveillance radars. Secondly, to replace aging air traffic surveillance radars. And number three, it offers a potential application to meet Department of Homeland Security and defense requirements for identifying and tracking non-cooperative aircraft. With the replacement of all these various radars with a single system, the American taxpayer could realize substantial savings in cost.
You have a lot fewer radars to maintain, and the electronic capability of this also reduces maintenance costs because you do not have moving parts.
Not too long ago, the ability to predict severe weather was thought to be impossible. During the past several decades, research conducted at the National Severe Storms Lab has developed life-saving tools like Doppler radar. We've progressed from no warning of threatening weather to about a 15-minute lead time, and current research promises to extend that much further.
Our knowledge of severe storms and how they behave, and our use and ability to use the Doppler radar technology is in a lot of cases a direct result of that close working relationship, that research to operations component that we get between the National Severe Storms Laboratory and a forecast office.
That history and understanding of how how these data can be used by our users and doing the research to help advance the use of radar technology. Really, it's what we live for. It's in our lifeblood. It's in our history.
It's now easier than ever to be a part of weather research. We just launched the mPing app for both iPhone and Android users, and it's totally free. PING, which stands for Precipitation Identification Near the Ground, is a research project by the NOAA National Severe Storms Lab and the University of Oklahoma. With the mobile app, you can send us your weather observations on the go. Are snowflakes falling on your head? Is hail hitting your car? Just select what type of precipitation is falling and press submit. It's that easy. It takes about 5 seconds and it's anonymous. Reports can then be viewed online. Our scientists will compare your report with what the radar has detected. This helps us develop new radar technologies and techniques. Download the app today, share your reports, and let's work together to make our nation weather ready. Learn more here and follow us.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. We'll close out the show with the marine weather segment, starting with the sea ice edge. The ice is extensive throughout the Arctic coast and down through the Chukchi Sea. There are a few areas ice is open there between Cape Lisburne and Point Ley. We are going to see a stronger northerly flow of air eventually develop here along the west side of the state down through the Bering Strait as we go through Sunday night and especially early next week. Further south along the ice edge, the ice may begin to push a little further south again with this northerly flow, but we don't expect much in the way of additional ice development, even though some colder temperatures are going to be coming back down here along the west and southwest coast as we go through next week. Looking at Saturday's marine forecast for the interchannel, strongest winds up here along the northern half. Northeast winds 35 knots, waves 8 feet in southern Lynn Canal. The offshore flow generally out of the northeast 30 to as high as 35 knots there just west of Sitka, and waves generally running 5 to 9 feet. These values are for the new nearshore marine zones that go from the coast out to 15 nautical miles. Sunday, interchannels winds generally out of the northeast as high as 25 knots. Petersburg on up through Juneau and southern Lynn Canal, waves 5 feet or so there. And then the outer coast winds will be as high as 30 knots from Gustavus off of Sitka with waves of 7 to 8 feet. For the northwestern Gulf, including Cook Inlet and Prince William Sound, northeast winds, waves 4 feet there within within Prince William Sound. Cook Inlet, variable winds up on the north end around 10 knots, but look for northwest to north winds at 25 knots there at the entrance of Cook Inlet, and 20 knots from the north off of the Kenai Peninsula, waves generally 4 to 6 feet. And then on Sunday, winds still northeasterly across Prince William Sound to 20 knots, waves 4 feet. And as we come on down through the lower portion of Cook Inlet, winds will be out of the north-northwest to 35 knots with waves as high as 8 to 10 feet there at the entrance and northeast of Kodiak. For Kodiak Island and the Alaska Peninsula, winds will generally be northwesterly there around Kodiak Island, 20 to 25 knots. 4-foot waves, Shelikof Strait. Winds will fall off and become variable in the nearshore zones. Sandpoint to False Pass, waves 3 to 4 feet, but look for northeast to east winds 15 knots on the north side of the peninsula and in the ice-free areas of Bristol Bay. For Sunday, those winds are going to pick up out of the northwest. Northwest is 30 30 to 35 knots surrounding Kodiak Island, as high as 40 knots there coming through areas east of Chignik. And then across the lower peninsula of the Alaska Peninsula there, 25 to 30 knot northwest winds, waves as high as 8 to 10 feet on the Bering side. Across the Aleutians, rather quiet conditions for Sunday, variable winds just 10 knots, the eastern and central Aleutians. And going into Sunday, winds are going to begin to pick up out of the north-northeast, generally 25 knots across the eastern and central Aleutians, and northeast winds to 30 knots west of Adak through Shemya. Waves generally 6 to 9 feet on the Bering side and 5 to 7 feet, at least through the central Aleutians on the North Pacific side. Across the ice areas here of the southwest coast, Norton Sound winds will generally be out of the northeast at 10 knots. Easterly winds 15 knots, St. Paul, St. George waves 4 feet where there is no ice in place. And then for Sunday, winds are going to pick up out of the north. We're expecting 25 to 30 knot winds, especially once you get south of Nunavik, south of St. Lawrence Island and Nunavik Island as well. Waves running as high as 5 to 6 feet away from the ice edge in the open water. And then finally, along the Arctic coast, winds will be out of the west, 20 to 25 knots with ice in place. Winds turn more northerly through the lower Chukchi Sea and through the Bering Strait, accelerate upwards to 30 knots there off of Wales and Port Clarence. 25 knots from the north on the north side of St. Lawrence Island, and then winds will continue westerly on Sunday at 20 to 25 knots, Utqiagvik through Kapkovik. More northwesterly there in the lower Chukchi Sea, 15 to 20 knots, Shishmaref, and then northerly 25 knots through the Bering Strait and on the north side of St. Lawrence Island. Here comes this cold front initially later tonight and into Saturday. Not going to move in especially fast, but that eventually will usher in colder air next week as a secondary system drops down along the west coast.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.